Yours, here right now, the kind of night we dream about. Oh, 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 it's beautiful. Yeah, time flies when you get it right, so hold on tight to me. Love like we never grew up, and live like you just get one tonight. We're kings and queens. One blink and it's over. Wake up and we're older tonight. We're kings and queens. Stop, take a breath, close your eyes, remember this. Oh, 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 it's beautiful. Love like we never grew up, and live like you just get one tonight. We're kings and queens. One blink and it's over. Wake up and we're older tonight. We're kings and queens. Time flies when you get it right, so hold on tight to me. Love like we never grew up, and live like you just get one tonight. We're kings and queens. One blink and it's over. Wake up and we're older tonight. We're kings and queens. yours here right now. The kind of night we dream about. Oh, 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 it's beautiful. Yeah, time flies when you get it right, so hold on tight to me. Love like we never grew up, and live like you just get one tonight. We're kings and queens. One blink and it's over. Wake up and we're older tonight. We're kings and queens. Stop, take a breath, close your eyes, remember this. Oh, oh, oh. It's beautiful. Love like we never grew up, and live like you just get one tonight. We're kings and queens. One blink and it's over. Wake up and we're older tonight. We're kings and queens. Time flies when you get it right, so hold on tight to me. Love like we never grew up, and live like you just get one tonight. We're kings and queens. One blink and it's over. Wake up and we're older tonight.
Hey, that's me talking. Before you saw nothing. You heard nothing. You only saw me. But hey, here's the audio now. Just trying to fake you guys out. So anyway, but anyway, as I was saying, you missed it all. It was the best commentary we gave in my entire life. It was only about 30 seconds, but it was great. Trust me, I promise. But what we're talking about here today is Ilhan Omar and how she slammed President Obama for bad, quote unquote, bad policies. And she went on to say, we can't only be upset with Trump. And again, well, not again, you're hearing it for the first time now, but what I was saying was the funny thing about this is it's just yesterday. The biggest reason why the Democratic Party didn't actually censor Ilhan Omar, and the biggest reason why they didn't remove her from a Foreign Relations Committee assignment, was because of the Black Congressional Caucus. and a lot of it that had to do with Representative Clyburn, who was made Democratic whip as kind of a compromise to get the Black Congressional Caucus to vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. Because if you remember correctly, with Ocasio Cortez and her friends, it wasn't certain for sure that Pelosi was going to be able to get the speakership without Republican votes. Trump had already promised Republican votes, but the last thing Speaker Pelosi wanted was having to take the speakership with Republican votes to get her across the finish line. I mean, the optics on that would have been awful. So she didn't want that, and so she made a deal with the Black Congressional Caucus and made Mr. Clyburn, I believe he would be number 3, got her, then the majority leader, and then the whip to make Mr. Clyburn number 3. Well, number 3, Mr. Clyburn, probably based on what he's hearing from the Black conscious community, did not want to slam Ilhan Omar. The Black conscious community, they say a lot of great things about immigration, but when it comes to Israel and anti-Semitism, they're like, well, they're really bad, to be honest with you. A lot of anti-Semitism in the Black community. Ben Shapiro was touching on this earlier today, and he won't actually go there. I guess he's expecting the rest of us to go there for him, which is kind of cowardice on his part because he's afraid of losing some sponsors or whatever. I have no idea. But he was talking about like how the New York Times won't cover who's behind or won't even cover the increase in hate crimes against Jews in New York City. And he says because, they're not white supremacists. And then he said that he really doesn't go on to say, well, who they are. Well, he knows who they are. I mean, the stats are all out there. I mean, it's really clear who they are. And he says, well, they're part of the minority community. Well, okay. Well, he's not talking about Latinos and part of the minority community in New York. Well, who lives in Bedford-Stuyvesant in New York and Brooklyn? Which ethnic group lives there primarily? Ben, you want to go there? No. You want me to go there for you? You want us to go there for you? No, I'm not going to do that. You go there. You keep talking about how people aren't brave enough to call it like it is. Hey, man, keep it 100. And, there's a clue, but no, he won't do that. No, he expects somebody else to do it, stick their neck out, and then, turn around and say, hey, Ben, you got my back? And you'll hear crickets. So if he's not going to call it out for what it is, well, then I'm not going to call it out for what it is. But he knows he knows which ethnic group in Brooklyn, New York, Bedford-Stuyvesant are beating up old Jewish men, rabbis wearing the dreadlocks and the hats and everything else. And he knows they're being targeted, and he knows they're not being robbed. There's plenty of videos on that where they're not robbing them; they're just going around beating the shit out of them. He knows who they are, but he won't call them out. So. But then he slams Democrats for being cowards. Well, there you go. So, Mr. Shapiro, no guts, no glory. You say you represent your people. You say you stand up for your people. Well, then call out the ethnic group who's doing this. He won't do it. But anyway, so back to the point. So they covered her ass yesterday. They went to Pelosi and said, no, we're not going to censor her. We're not going to mention her name. We're going to dilute this whole, resolution so it doesn't appear it's about, well, one, we won't even mention her name in the resolution, Ilhan Omar, and we're going to say we're against hate and all kinds of hate, every kind of hate, but we're not going to mention exactly why we had to bring this resolution to the floor to begin with, which was Ilhan Omar's 3 anti-Semitic statements. And the Black Congressional Caucus comes to her rescue, bails her out. She doesn't even wait like a week. One day later, she's slamming their hero, President Obama. I mean, she slams him. And let me just get to the article right now. Let me just cut over to it here. There you go. Okay. There we are. Let me pull this off. Okay. Representative Ilhan Omar, and let me pull this off here so you can see a little better. Representative Ilhan Omar slams Obama, and put me here. Slams Obama for bad policies. We can't be only upset with Trump. And the story goes on to say, again, this is one day after the Black Congressional Caucus covered her ass, and the only reason why they didn't vote to censor her specifically and make a resolution against anti-Semitism because of the Black Congressional Caucus. That was it. Representative Clyburn specifically, the whip, Democratic whip in the House. So here's what she goes. Here's what Omar Here's what the story goes on to say, and this is, of course, courtesy of the Washington Times. Thank you, Washington Times. I'm a subscriber to them. They have e-newspapers and stuff, and it makes it really easy to use on YouTube. But anyway, so here's the story. Representative Ilhan Omar criticized former President Barack Obama as a polished. She could have just said, and he speaks so well. He's so articulate. I guess she could have said that too. Amazing what she can get away with because she's a woman and she's Muslim. It's just amazing what she can get away with. I mean, I guess all she had to say at this point was, "You lie." That would have been it. And then she would have got away with that too. Representative Ilhan Omar criticized former President Barack Obama as a polished politician who sold hope and change to the American people but failed to deliver. Again, one day after the Black Congressional Caucus comes to her rescue, she's slamming their hero. In a new interview with Politico magazine, the freshman Democrat revealed that it was her frustration with her own party that inspired her to run for office. We can't be only upset with Trump, Ms. Omar said. His policies are bad, but many of the people who came before him also had really bad policies. They were just more polished than he was. That's amazing. And that's what we should be looking. That's not what we should be looking for anymore, she added. We don't want anybody to get away with murder because they are polished. Again, polished. Again, just say it. He's so articulate. Oh, my God. We want to recognize the actual policies that are behind the pretty face and the smile. Miss Omar said that the quote, hope and change slogan offered by Mr. Obama was a mirage, citing, this is what she cites. Well, she actually brings this up because remember that the caging of kids. Remember the whole story when they showed the kids in the cages, down at the border, and they said, "Oh, look, Trump is caging kids." Well, it turns out that was a picture from 2014 when Obama was the president, and so she's slamming him on it, which is funny. So Mr. Obama was a mirage, citing the caging of kids at the U.S.-Mexico border and the droning of countries around the world. Now, she's specifically referring to Muslim countries, of course, because she's Muslim, and that's her identity. That is her single identity. Well, probably a woman, but probably, I'd say 90% Muslim, 10% woman. That's her identity. That's who she got elected by Muslims, and I believe she got elected in, I want to say she's from Michigan or Minnesota. I think she's the one from Michigan. Well, let's see. Maybe they set up here. No. But I'm pretty sure she's the one from Dearborn, Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. She could be the one from Minnesota. No, she's from Minnesota because she's Somalian. That's right. She's from Minnesota. Anyway, in a wide-ranging interview, Ms. Omar embraced comparisons of the Tea Party to the newly formed freshman squad, which includes left-wing Democrats such as herself and Representative Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ayanna Pressley. We look at the negative aspects of the Tea Party and not really at the part of them that spoke to the American people that made them feel like they were people actively fighting for them, Ms. Omar said. There's a resemblance there. A lot of us are not much different in our eagerness to want to come here and fight for our constituents, fight for the American ideals we believe in. Well, her constituents are Muslims, and she doesn't believe in American ideals. The only American ideal she believes in is kindness equal weakness. Okay, that we let anybody in and we let them make their own rules up, and we allow them to have Sharia courts and to enforce laws on their own. And that's the American ideal that she has for us, that we should all be kind to the point of being weak and allow these people to run amok in our country. That's what she's talking about. And then she goes on to say, I don't believe that tiptoeing is a way to win the hearts and minds of the people, she said. I get saddened by some of my freshman colleagues who can't understand that within their districts, the idea of Medicare for all is extremely popular. The Green New Deal is a very popular idea in their districts. Making sure that we have a final fix to our broken immigration system is very popular in their districts. What they pay attention to is the rhetoric that says, this is red to blue district, you have to be careful, you can't talk about these policies. Well, in reality, she says, these people are like everyone else. They struggle with the cost of health care. They struggle with our broken infrastructure. They struggle with having an economy that brings them into the 21st century, and we have to be willing to have those conversations. Well, the funny thing is she has a point that this is what people are talking about. But one thing they're not talking about is ripping this country to pieces and rebuilding it from the ground up in order to implement the Green New Deal. She talks about what the American people are talking about in their dinner tables, in their homes. They're talking about, they struggle with the cost of health care. They struggle with broken infrastructure. They struggle with having an economy that brings them into the 21st century. Yeah, those she's got a point. People are talking about those things, but that's not what she's for. She's for this Green New Deal. She's for illegal immigration, open borders. She's for open borders. Well, people, that's not going to make American people's lives any better by having open borders. It's going to increase the amount of labor you have, which any economics 101, you increase the supply and demand stays constant or goes down. Say even it stays constant or doesn't rise as quick as supply, well, then prices go down. And prices in this case would be wages. Because in other words, you have an employer who's got 100 people looking for this one job. He can, pay a minimum wage. Now you have an employer who's only got, say, 5 people looking for one job. Well, you get into a little bidding war there. But you can't bid against 99 people. You can bid against 4 other people. Maybe you're better qualified. The guy's going to take you. But you sure can't bid against 99 other people. You say, hey, I want more money. He's like, I got 99 people out there who will take less than what you want, and why should I not go with them? I'm sure I can find somebody just as good as you. So what she's talking about is not what the American people are talking about. She says what the American people are talking about, but then she just says, well, we want the Green New Deal and, Medicare for all. Medicare for all is popular when you say Medicare for all until you tell them what it costs. When you tell them it's going to cost $3.5 trillion per year for the next 10 years, that's $30 trillion, which more than doubles our debt, which takes us from 100% of our gross domestic product to 250% of our gross domestic product, in the next 10 years, plus whatever other, bills are coming due. Then people get really freaked out. You tell them, well, you got to pay for, have your taxes raised, and not just on the 1%. There's not enough money in the 1%, even if you tax them at 99% to pay for what this is going to cost. It's not going to happen. And then also when you talk about, immigration, again, illegal immigration doesn't benefit Americans. It doesn't. If you want to have a legal immigration system, great, we have one. We let in about 1 million people a year. Like I've always said, just tell me what the number is. Say we have, a declining birth rate and we need a positive birth rate for growth, and we have these many jobs and they need to be filled, and here's a number, whatever the number is, in these different classifications of jobs, whether it's unskilled labor or very skilled labor or whatever the case might be, fine. Just let us know what that number is and we'll go from there. Let me get back over here. I'll be right back. And she slammed Obama. Yeah, Lucky Sport. Yeah, she slammed Obama. And again, this is a day after the Black Congressional Caucus put their weight behind her and told Pelosi, no, we're not going to censor this lady, and this isn't going to happen. And one day, she can't wait. One lousy day. She couldn't wait till next week to do this. One day, she slaps these people right in the face. Doesn't even say thank you, just says, oh, by the way, thanks for nothing, and I hate you anyway, and bam, hits them in the face, and then slams their hero. And anyway, so Miss Omar, a Muslim who has been embroiled in controversy since her election for repeatedly making comments that perpetuate anti-Semitic tropes. Congresswoman has repeatedly stated that her criticism is directed at the Israeli government, not the Jewish people. Okay, that's bullshit. Okay, that's red herring. I don't know. Think of the phrase. It's out there, but no. This woman hates Jewish people. Okay, I'm not Jewish. Okay, Roman Catholic, Italian, German. Okay, that's me. But I can call a spade a spade. This woman hates Jewish people. She does. She's from Somalia. She's Muslim. She talks about the Palestinians. Well, first of all, screw the Palestinians. Who are these people anyway? Okay, they're like, nobody in the whole entire Middle East wants anything to do with the Palestinians. That's why they keep saying, they should take over Israel, because they don't want them in their own country. They don't want them anywhere near them. Look, these people get billions of dollars a year in foreign aid from Iran, Saudi Arabia, you name it. Billions of dollars flow into this country, into the West Bank, into the Gaza Strip, which is about the combined landmass, I think, is about the size of Connecticut and Rhode Island. Maybe. I would say Massachusetts even, but it's not. And all this money, they can't do anything with it. They can't build anything with it. The Israelis came into a wilderness and they built a civilization. The Palestinians, you give them a civilization, they're going to build you a wilderness. Somebody had a quote, and it wasn't Ben Shapiro who said this, but he was quoting somebody else. He said, "What would happen tomorrow if the Palestinians laid down their guns?" Well, you'd have peace. And then he went on to say, "Okay, what would happen if the Israelis laid down their guns?" Man, those people would come across that border in 2 seconds, just wipe them out. And whoever they didn't kill, they throw into the Mediterranean Sea. And everybody knows that to be true. Okay? So, Palestinians, they just, wherever they go, they cause nothing but problems. I mean, they tried taking over Jordan, and King Hussein at the time took them out and took them out pretty bad. I mean, really harsh. That's how the Palestinians ended up in Lebanon. They had to go somewhere because, Jordan said, "You're not welcome here. You try to take me out, you try to take over my country, and you're gone." And they went to Lebanon, and that used to be like, I think it was called I can't remember what it was called, like the Riviera, the Riviera of the Eastern Mediterranean. And of course, that place turned into a dump, you know. And the West Bank's a dump. The Gaza's a dump. No matter how much money they get flowing in there to help them out, it's a dump. It's as Trump would say, or I'm not going to do this ad hominem, as I would say, it's a shithole. Okay, why? Because they treat it like that. They have so much hatred and anger and resentment and whatever. But hey, to the victors go the spoils. I mean, if people in this country want to say, well, who was there first, and the Palestinians there first, the Israelis there first, who has the right to the land, and I always tell people I talk to, I said, hey, as Americans, do we really want to have that conversation? Do we really want to have that conversation? Because what that leads to in this country. Well, what about the Indians? I mean, right away it's like we're saying, well, the Palestinians should be there, and it's not right the Israelis have the land. Well, okay, make that argument. Then when some Indian stands up banging his drum in your face, tell him he's not welcome to your land. It's like, well, wait a second. You just said the Palestinians should have the land, and the Israelis should go. And it's not fair how they got it. And the Indian's like, hey, buddy, I'm right here. Talk to me about this. And actually in this country, the state of Georgia, where the Cherokee tribe was. I mean, they won that lawsuit. They went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court in the 1800s. And the Supreme Court told President Jackson, you can't kick these people out. You can't kick them off their land. They have a right to be there. The Supreme Court. And Jackson's response was, yeah, how many troops does the Supreme Court have? And then, of course, the famous story, the Trail of Tears. He sends the army down there. Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. And Jackson says, yeah, stop me. How are you, Supreme Court, going to stop me? I have the army. I'm the commander in chief. And he ran them out of there. So it wasn't like, it wasn't even like we conquered them. They had a legal right pursuant to our laws to be on that land, and he kicked them out and they sent them to Oklahoma. I guess, they'd have a better argument than the Palestinians do. I don't know if we want to go down that road. But, just look, all the maps of the world, every country, were drawn by, were drawn by the victors. I mean, people look at all the maps of the country. It's by conquest. It's always been by conquest. And if you win, you get the land. If you lose, you get nothing. There's a famous saying among the Indians, the Plains Indian tribes, and it talks about the Cheyenne, the Sioux, and the Pawnee. Well, the Pawnee made the deal with the Americans, to help them out against the Sioux and the Cheyenne. So the saying is, let's see, I don't want to butcher this too much. The Pawnee got the land. Let's see, the Cheyenne did the fighting. The Sioux got the glory, and the Pawnee got the land. And that's pretty much how that goes. So, I know I butchered that somewhere. I know there's somebody who knows that saying. If there is somebody who actually knows that saying and said it, and I said it wrong, put it in the chat room. I'd love to, love to hear what it actually is. I'm pretty sure that's it, but I'm not sure. But anyway, Omar goes on to say she told Politico she's glad that her actions have opened a conversation in Washington about Israeli money and politics. There's no shame in her game. This is right after, that boat came down. And she's letting Pelosi know, hey, you can't do shit to me. You can't touch me. Albeit she just burned a big alliance. She just burned the biggest alliance she had in there, the Black Congressional Caucus. If you don't think Clyburn is sitting over there with not egg mud on his face saying, oh, my God, and his members are saying, hey, man, this woman just sold us out. She just went after our hero. What are you gonna do about it? And he's like, well, I don't know. And I mean, she's burning allies left and right. I mean, she's already got Pelosi on her ass. Now Clyburn's gonna get all over her ass. So I mean, she's running out of friends, like Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, she's got enemies in New York already. Let me tell you, these are powerful people. She's made enemies of in New York. Mayor De Blasio. Governor Cuomo. These people are gonna get to be mayor and governor respectively by being nice. They know about power. They know about money. And they got a lot of both. A lot of money behind them and a lot of power. And, redistricting comes up in New York after the 2020 census in 2021. I mean, they're liable to take that district right away from her. Like, oh, we had to move your district. You're no longer a congressperson. Oh, well, I guess you could always move and run somewhere else. Well, the thing is, she could probably move and run somewhere and probably win. But still, these freshmen are making enemies really fast, and this is really crazy. See, Chandra writes, they invent nothing, they produce nothing, they lead. They lead in what? There is no such thing as a third-generation refugee. True. Fake Stinians. I agree with you on that. Totally agree with you on that. But yeah, so I mean, this is crazy. Now, I'm going to jump topic just a little bit here because I saw an interesting story, which is good news. A good news story. Oh my God, I know. I couldn't believe it myself. It's in the Wall Street Journal. And let me just see how this is going to line up here. All these newspapers line up a little bit differently when I bring them in. So let's see here. Make sure this lines up good. Fed chief says no need to change interest rates at present. Jerome Powell says policymakers have adopted a patient wait and see. Again, the Wall Street Journal. There's the Fed chief. Yay. Okay, this lines up pretty good, actually. Yeah, let me just move this over just a little bit. Okay, that's good. All right, so let's go on to the story. The Federal Reserve doesn't need to change interest rate policy right now against a mixed backdrop of restrained price pressures, a generally strong U.S. labor market, and slower global growth, Chairman Jerome Powell said in a speech Friday night. With nothing in the outlook demanding an immediate policy response, the central bank has adopted a patient wait-and-see approach to considering any alteration of the stance on policy, Mr. Powell said in remarks to the Standard Institute of Economic Policy Research in Stanford, California. Fed officials raised the short-term benchmark rate in December to a range between 2.25 and 2.5, but have since shelved plans for further increases after markets swooned late last year on concerns over slowing global growth. Mr. Powell's remarks followed the European Central Bank's surprise announcement Thursday of new plans to stimulate the Eurozone economy before a slowdown deepens. Central banks in Canada and Australia this week also noted rising risks to the outlook. Mr. Powell's speech also came on the heels of a mixed U.S. employment report that showed hiring essentially stalled in February, but the unemployment rate fell and wages rose at their best annual pace in several years. So, I mean, this is actually really important. This is a story that I wish a lot more people would cover. I mean, the whole reason why the GDP didn't jump as high as it did in the second quarter all the way through the third quarter and fourth quarter of this year, because the Fed, put their foot on the damn gas, on the brakes. They raised interest rates. The economy just started going. See, the Fed has a policy that if inflation gets above 2%, they got to raise interest rates. Well, 2% doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room. I mean, 2%, prices are increasing because demand's increasing without outpacing supply. Okay, I get it. But, and so right away they got to say, oh, things are growing too fast. And so we got to chop down. We got to slow growth a little bit to keep these prices down, keep inflation down. See, inflation scares the Fed a lot because they remember the late 70s. Well, I'm sure these guys are old enough to remember the late 70s. That's when you had inflation spiraling out of control, and they kept raising interest rates. I think they got to like 19% interest rates, prime interest rate, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. So inflation kept going up, and they kept raising interest rates. They wouldn't stop it, and unemployment was going up at the same time, which is physically not supposed to happen, and they couldn't figure out how to stop it. And it's scared the hell out of them ever since. And that's they don't. I guess they thought maybe they let inflation get a little bit too high before they put the brakes on, and then once it got too high, they couldn't bring it back down, even with raising interest rates. I mean, you got to remember there was an oil crisis at the time, and oil prices went through the roof in the late 70s, and that's why you had cities like Houston and Oklahoma City, New Orleans, catch fire. I mean, literally just go through the roof because oil prices were so high, and if you owned oil companies, you were making money, and a lot of tertiary industries in those cities were blooming all over the place. But I mean, still though, it still scares them. Inflation is one thing that hurts lower income people more than anybody, people on fixed incomes, because your cost of living increased based on inflation. Generally doesn't kick in quarterly, if I'm not mistaken, so you have to wait a full year before it kicks in. So people on fixed incomes who a dollar here, a dollar there, they're counting dollars. I mean, these people, if you're on a fixed income, you're counting dollars. So with that said, they get scared. But still, I think that number should be more around, like, say, 4.5% as far as inflation. Just give the economy, once it starts building and coming back again, give it a few minutes. Okay, if it gets to 4.5, and it looks like it's going to keep going up, okay, you can put the brakes on then. but allow a little bit of strength because I mean, economic growth could have been easily annual growth could have been 4% if they had let it go and they let inflation go up, to about 4.5%. They chose not to. But anyway, so let's continue on with the story. Fed officials last year had been raising rates toward a neutral setting designed to neither spur nor slow growth. Mr. Powell said Friday the benchmark rate was not within the broad range of estimates of the neutral rate, and that his colleagues on the central bank's rate settings committee generally agree that this policy stance is appropriate. With the Fed done raising interest rates for now, officials have focused in recent months on when to stop shrinking the central bank's $4 trillion asset portfolio. They began pairing holdings of Treasury and mortgage securities in October 17 by allowing bonds to mature without replacing them. The holdings reached a peak of $4.5 trillion, or 25% of gross domestic product, in 2014, up from 6%, or less than $1 trillion before the 2008 financial crisis. Yeah, if they're holding on to too much bonds. I mean, they're going to have to let them go at some point. And the problem, sad part, when they let them go, they got to let them go really slow. It's like, oh, nuts. We bought all this stuff up after the financial crisis, and now we got to let them go. But anyway, so the main takeaway from this story is is that they're going to hold off on raising interest rates right now. But it's just these. All right, let's see what else we got. Because that's a couple other good stories here. Let's actually go to the e-edition. Let's see. Politics. The Manafort story. This is interesting. Let's cover this one real quick here. Let me bounce this over. There we go. It raises up a little bit for you guys so you can see it better. There we go. Judge sentences Manafort to 4 years in prison. Let me just check the chat room real quick here. All righty. Looking good. Okay, so judge sentences Manafort to 4 years in prison. Prosecutors criticized for seeking the maximum of 19 to 24 years. Basically wanted him to get a death penalty. And Tucker Carlson did a good story on this tonight. And pretty much, all these people on MSNBC and CNN were all crying that, oh, this is terrible. As a prosecutor, I'm ashamed. As an American, I'm really pissed off. And they keep thinking, and the judge had to remind everybody, hey, look, this guy wasn't charged with colluding with the Russians. Okay, so if you're going to be upset with this 4-year sentence, this is twice. Well, he didn't say this on the bench, but Tucker brought it up. This is about twice what the average person gets for these kind of crimes, for bank fraud, tax evasion. Mainly, a lot of times as long as they get the money. As long as they get the money back, they get restitution. Like, the IRS gets their money back, and if, whatever banks got defrauded or something, they get their money back. Generally, it's probation, or if you get time, it's only a couple of years generally. So the judge is looking at this in the totality of the situation, and he's saying, hey, look, okay, I know everybody up there. I mean, he didn't say this exactly, but this is what he was kind of saying. I know everybody out there wants this guy to go to prison forever because of this Russian collusion thing, but Mueller never charged him with Russian collusion because there was no evidence of it. If he had evidence, trust me, he would have been more than happy to charge anybody. He hasn't charged a single American with colluding with the Russians. Not one in 2 years. Let's see. Papadopoulos, he didn't get charged with colluding. He got charged with everybody's been charged with after the investigation began, with actions they took after the investigation began, or with action they took way before the campaign began. Manafort was years before he even met Donald Trump to be his campaign chairman. Then you have, God, I can't remember the guy's name now. Jesus. God. I don't know, the crazy guy that's running around all the time, and they just got a gag order against him. But he's being charged with lying. One of the things he lied to the FBI about was that he knew Julian Assange, and he was in touch with WikiLeaks and all that. And he actually lied. The FBI says, no, you don't. He goes, yeah, I do. Don't tell anybody I don't know him. Yes, I do. And he goes, well, no, you're lying. So they charged. That was one of the things they charged him with, lying about who he knew when he doesn't know anybody. He's just a guy looking to pretend to be important. But and Manafort again. This is bank fraud, tax evasion. So he's reminding the courtroom, hey, look, this is your typical tax evasion, bank fraud type of case, and we get these all the time in federal court. And we don't send somebody away to 19 to 24. The guy's 70 years old. We're not going to give this guy a death sentence, but you should have seen MSNBC and CNN. The panel's like, oh, they wanted this guy in jail forever. They want him to die in prison. They want him to be punished, not for the crimes he committed. I guarantee most of the panelists couldn't even tell you what exactly the crimes he was convicted of doing. They want him punished because of Trump and Russia. Even though if Mueller had it, he would have brought it. Because he didn't have it, because there was no evidence of it, because he didn't do it. I mean, trust me, this investigation has been so thorough, on behalf by Mueller. People say, well, he didn't have a big scope. Well, the one scope he definitely did have was Russia collusion and conspiracy with the Russians to, defraud the American people and win the election. He definitely had all the ability to go after that angle, and he didn't find anything. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, they didn't find any evidence of it. The House Committee hasn't found any evidence on it. That's why you see Schiff now, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, what he's doing. He's going off into, looking at Trump's tax records, looking at Trump's business dealings, before he became president. Just like going back whenever, how many years, doesn't matter. Because he knows everybody in Washington who's in the know knows that Mueller's report's coming down. It's not gonna have the goods on Trump or anybody close to Trump. So now they're gonna go after something stupid. They have to go after something else. But everybody's bitching about it. He only got 4 years. Well, let's go on and read the story again. This is by Jeff M. Ordock of the Washington Times. Thank you, Washington Times. So a Virginia federal judge. A Virginia federal judge Thursday sentenced President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, to 47 months in prison for bank and tax fraud. Manafort's sentence is the longest imposed on anyone connected to the president or given to anyone charged under Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Still, it was well short of the 24 years in prison Manafort faced under federal sentencing guidelines. U.S. District Court Judge T.S. Ellis called the guidelines excessive and imposed a sentence he said matched other bank and tax fraud cases. Exactly. It is just a sentence, and I have satisfied myself about that, he said. Judge Ellis also criticized prosecutors from Mueller's office for seeking the maximum sentence of 1924. The government cannot sweep away the history of all these previous sentences, he said. And basically he's saying, look, I've sentenced people on these crimes in the past. And other judges just down the hall from you have sentenced people on these kind of crimes in the past. And none of us have given this guy, have ever given anybody 19 to 24 years. Why do you want 19 to 24 for this guy? Why is this guy so much different? Well, the answer's simple. He worked on the Trump campaign. That's the only thing that makes this guy different. If he was just Joe Blow Manafort, we never heard of the guy, and he was never connected with the Trump campaign. And, this came up by somebody found something like, say, somewhere, and they prosecuted him for it. Judge Ellis would have probably given him the same. It probably would have given him less of a sentence, or it would have been pled away with restitution and some minimum time and possibly, some probation or on parole. And so that's what he's saying. He goes, the government cannot sweep away the history of all these previous sentences. Manafort, who was wheeled into court wearing a green prison jumpsuit, told the court that he was humiliated and shamed. The past 2 years have been the most difficult years for my family and I, he told the court in a brief statement. He asked Judge Ellis to show mercy, adding that he feels punished by these proceedings already. Yeah, he got taken into custody. I don't think it was in this court by this judge. I think it was in by the other judge, the Obama appointee. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, she's the one who put him in jail. Still, he did not apologize for crimes or admit guilt. Instead, he thanked the judge for his fairness during the trial. Judge Ellis said he was surprised that Manafort's statement did not include an apology. What was he going to apologize for? For what? Okay. Prosecutors justified calling for, here's their reasoning. Prosecutors justified calling for a maximum sentence by arguing Manafort never gave helpful information during his more than 50 hours of interviews with Mueller's team. The reason, 50 hours of interviews with Mueller's team, what, on his bank fraud case? On his tax evasion case? No, they were trying to get dirt on Trump. And if he didn't have any, they wanted him to make some up. They didn't care if what he was saying was true or not. Then they go on to say, the reason we met for 50 hours was because he lied. Prosecutor Greg Andrews said he told us 50 hours of things we already knew. It certainly wasn't 50 hours of information that was useful. Well, yeah, maybe it was just the truth. Maybe the truth isn't useful to Mueller's team. Like, hey, man, we weren't doing anything with the Russians to try to win the election. No, it's not true. Oh, you're lying. No, really. Do you have anything? No. You got every single phone call, every single text message, every single email. You have my entire travel itinerary. You've interviewed everybody under the sun who I talked to, met with, whatever. And people who worked with me, who dined me out, who sold out for for a favor for not being prosecuted, the Podesta brothers, in particular, and there's nothing there. So what do you want me? They're all saying like Alan Dershowitz does this. He says they either want you to sing or to compose. In other words, sing like you already have the song, like okay, Trump did it, or compose. In other words, make something up, write a new song, okay, which would be Trump did it, which he wasn't going to do, and good for him. I hope Trump actually commutes his sentence. I don't think. I mean, a full-on pardon would be nice, but as long as he commutes his sentence and gets him out of prison, my guess he's going to wait for after the Mueller report to come out. That way, somebody can't say, well, if Trump didn't commute this guy's sentence and he was still doing time, Mueller could have got some more info from him. But once Mueller writes his final report, then Trump can go, well, okay, he's commuted, he's paid enough of a price. Okay, only reason why, and Trump could say, hey, look, I feel guilty about this because the only reason why this guy is where he is in prison is because I knew him. It's because he worked on my campaign. If he hadn't worked on my campaign, he'd be out doing whatever he's doing. Manafort's attorneys have disputed that he lied to prosecutors, but focused their argument on how similar offenders receive less than the maximum sentence. And then the attorneys say tax evasion is by no means jaywalking, but it's not drug trafficking. Thomas Zelny, a Manafort attorney, said Thursday's sentence marks a stunning fall for Manafort, a longtime political operative who advised American presidents and foreign dignitaries. He spent decades as a lobbyist, amassing high-profile political connections and raking in millions of dollars in income. In August, a federal jury convicted him of 2 counts of bank fraud, 5 counts of tax fraud, and 1 count of failing to declare a foreign bank account. The jury deadlocked on 10 other charges. The Alexandria, Virginia jury found Manafort guilty of failing to report $16.5 million in income he earned in the Ukraine on behalf of the country's former Russian-backed president, Viktor Yanukovych. He also was found guilty, of dodging taxes on that income, failing to register as a foreign lobbyist, and providing false financial information to obtain more favorable bank loans. None of the crimes for which Manafort was convicted stemmed from his time with the Trump campaign. However, Judge Ellis made a point to emphasize that none of Manafort's crimes are connected to the Russian collusion allegations Mr. Mueller is probing. He is not before the court for any allegation that he or anyone at his direction colluded with the Russian government to influence the 2016 election, he said. Manafort, 69, is expected to receive additional prison time next week when he is sentenced in a separate hearing next week in Washington. That's in front of the Obama appointee, the female judge who just hates Manafort to death. He has been jailed since June when federal prosecutors said he tampered with 2 potential witnesses in a criminal case against him. In September, Manafort pled guilty to similar charges in the Washington case, avoiding a second trial. When witness tampering charges were added to the Washington indictment in June, the judge overseeing the case revoked Manafort's bail. Yeah, that's a female judge in D.C. who got appointed by President Obama. Manafort would have been eligible to receive a lighter sentence had he stuck with the deal offered to him by Mr. Mueller's team after he pled guilty in Washington. Instead, the deal was revoked after U.S. District Court Judge Amy Berman Jackson concluded he lied to Mueller's prosecutors and investigators. In the Washington case, Manafort pled guilty to 2 conspiracy counts. He also admitted his guilt to the 10 counts in Virginia, in which the jury could not reach a verdict. He'll be sentenced in that case next Wednesday when he could face a maximum sentence of 10 years. She'll give it to him. Now, this one will max him out. Judge Jackson must decide whether Manafort will serve the 2 sentences simultaneously, concurrently, or whether they'll be served consecutively. She's going to max him out and sentence him consecutively. Mark my words. Mr. Mueller's team has not taken a position on how to construct the 2 likely prison terms. Still, Manafort's former boss could spare him from spending the rest of his life in prison. In November, Mr. Trump told the New York Post that he would not rule out a pardon for Manafort. Again, after the Mueller report comes out, the guy's going to get either pardoned or sentence commuted. And along these lines, there's another great story. Mr. Cohen, liar especial. Lawyer. Cohen's lawyer says Cohen directed his former attorney to seek pardon. Well, I guess that would be attorney-client privilege, but Mr. Cohen will know that, well, I guess nothing is attorney-client privilege anymore. Amazing. Anyway, it's by Michael B. Alsamo and Michael R.S. Isaac of the Associated Press, and this is put out there by the Washington Times. Michael Cohen, president, let's see, let's check something real quick. Okay. Let's see. Michael Cohen, President Trump's former fixer and personal lawyer, directed his attorney to explore a pardon with Rudy Giuliani and others on the president's legal team. Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, said Thursday. Ta-da! Wow, I guess Mr. Cohen's about to get another referral to the Justice Department from the Republicans on the Oversight Committee because that's the second lie he told to Congress. First lie he told was that he didn't want to go work in the White House, which turned out to be false because there was a nice little CNN interview with Jake Tapper where, Chris Cuomo, where he says, yeah, I want to go, but they haven't invited me. Hold on, let me get a cigarette. So anyway, Lanny Davis just dimed his client out. The written statement from Mr. Davis, who was not Cohen's lawyer at the time, appears to contradict Cohen's sworn testimony last week at the House Oversight and Reform Committee hearing that he had never asked for and would not accept a pardon from Mr. Trump. Mr. Davis' comment raises questions about whether Cohen, who is slated to begin a 3-year prison sentence in May for crimes including lying to Congress, lied to Congress again last week. See, my guess is this is kind of tricky. Okay, Davis is Cohen's attorney. All right, and Cohen made a deal with the Mueller team and the Southern District of New York, and he gave certain statements to the prosecutor of the Southern District of New York, U.S. Attorney's Office, and to the Mueller team. And I'm sure one of the things he told them was that it came out that he had asked for a pardon, or obviously everybody's phone is tapped. Somebody heard somebody on a phone, or somebody leaked it somewhere that he had done it. Now, Davis puts Davis in a tight spot because Davis knows he did ask for a pardon. So, still, I don't know how he got around attorney-client privilege. I don't know why he would divulge that information. I don't know if Cohen gave him permission to. I have no idea. But I guess Cohen's the last person in the world to yell about, well, you just violated my attorney-client privilege, when he's been violating attorney-client privilege with President Trump for the last year. Now, there is a crime fraud exception to the attorney-client privilege. If your client is engaged in fraud with you or asking you to commit fraud, there is no attorney-client privilege. But, talking about things like things he said to him, whatever, I mean, was that an attorney-client confidential communication? I'd argue probably was. I mean, he's on the clock. If I'm running around with my client and he's not asking me to help him commit a crime, I think anything he pretty much says to me at that point is attorney-client privilege. I don't know, because you don't know where it's going to lead to. Because I remember he said Trump was talking about saying bad things about black people. Well, I don't know, maybe that leads somewhere. But when in doubt, you don't give up a client statement to you. I mean, you don't. I mean, you just don't. So I guess he's not really in a position to complain about Lanny Davis. Lanny Davis, he says, "Oh, you violated attorney-client privilege." He probably doesn't want any people to know there is such a thing as attorney-client privilege. So anyway, let's see. Cohen's legal team argued that his statement was correct because he never asked the president himself for a pardon. Well, there we go. There's lawyer talk. I hate lawyers. Terrible people. Mr. Davis also said that Mr. Trump's advisors dangled the possibility of a pardon for Cohen. He said in the written statement that his client was open to ongoing dangling of a possible pardon by Trump representatives privately and in the media in the months after the FBI raided Cohen's home office and hotel room in April 2018. The issue of pardons has emerged as a key line of inquiry as Democrats start a series of sweeping investigations of Mr. Trump's political and personal dealings. In a statement, Mr. Giuliani called Cohen a serial liar. Let's hope Congress and DOJ are outraged at Cohen's disrespecting them by perjuring himself repeatedly, Mr. Giuliani said. There is nothing inherently improper about a subject in a criminal investigation seeking a pardon from a president, given the president's wide latitude in granting them. That's his constitutional authority, not by statutes, by Constitution. But investigators want to know if the prospects of presidential pardons were offered or used inappropriately. Well, that's the whole thing about the pardon in the Constitution. It doesn't say it's. I mean, I guess I can go find it what it says, but the pardon power in the Constitution doesn't say, well, when appropriate, and you can't use it to keep somebody from testifying bad about you. It doesn't say that. It's one of those absolute rights. It's part of Article 2. I mean, it's there. It's kind of a holdover from the king. The king would forgive you and release you and stuff. And somehow our founding fathers still thought that was a good idea. I really don't have an opinion on pardons one way or the other, to be honest with you. They also appear to be focusing on presidential powers as a significant line of questioning in their probes. House Judiciary Committee, which is conducting a probe into possible obstruction of justice, corruption, and abuse of power, sent letters to the FBI, the Justice Department, and others for documents related to possible pardons for Cohen, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, and former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. All three have been charged in special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Again, the presidential pardon power is, again, by Constitution, and is absolute. You cannot be charged with obstruction. Even if this guy's about to testify against you, you can't say, I'm going to pardon you. Bye. Doesn't matter. Even if that's clear that by everybody in the room knows that he's pardoning this guy because he doesn't want this guy, in a courtroom in handcuffs testifying against him, so he's going to pardon him. It's an absolute power. It's in the Constitution. You can't look behind it. This is all just, BS, okay? And anybody who has read the Constitution will tell you that. Let me see if I can find this. I'm getting tired of talking about something I don't have in front of me. Hold on. Let's see. Let's see. Hey, there's me. Let's take me out of here. Boom. Anyway, there's our call-in number. Now, let me go take a look, see what's going on here. All right. All right, let's see if I can find this. All right, this is me getting close to the camera because I'm getting close to the one of my keyboards. Two keyboards, but it's a long story. All right, pardon. Let's see. Pardon. Article 2. Power, pardon power, Article 2. The founders enshrined that power in Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, which says the president shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. Okay, yeah, in other words, let's see. Let's get the actual quote. Well, no, somebody gives me a story. Here we go. Okay, Section 2. Let's find it. United States. Okay, here we go. All right, let's cut over to this. Boom. All right, so Article 2, Section 2. This is about the executive branch. Okay, and you see the first paragraph, the last sentence, third line from the bottom. And he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. That's it. That's what it says. There's no qualifier. There's nothing that says, can he can he do it if somebody's going to really testify against him? It doesn't say that. It doesn't have an exception. The founders didn't write except, they only said one thing, except in cases of impeachment. That's it. Now, there have been no articles of impeachment filed against President Trump. They're not there. They don't exist. So that one little exception does not exist right now. It doesn't. Okay? So he can grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. That's it. Okay? And stop. Full stop. Nothing. Bye. So whatever there isn't anything there. All right? So there you go. Boom. All right, let's get back to this story. All righty. So, let's see. The House Judiciary Committee, which is, make sure we're up on the right page here. There we go. House Judiciary Committee, which is conducting a probe into possible obstruction of justice, corruption, and abuse of power, sent letters to the FBI, Justice Department, and others for documents related to possible pardons for Cohen, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, and former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. All three have been charged. Special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation and possible coordination between Russia, as I like when Tucker says it, Tucker Carlson, Russia. Okay. Russia and Trump's presidential campaign. All right, let's get back here. All right. Congressional investigators are also looking into whether anyone on Mr. Trump's legal team tried quietly to reach out to Cohen last year before he turned on the president and his legal problems mounted. Why? According to a person familiar with the matter, two New York lawyers who claimed to be in contact with Mr. Giuliani reached out to Cohen after the raids on his office and hotel room. The attorney said they could join his legal team to be a conduit to Mr. Trump's lawyers, the person said. Well, that's just some guy looking to make a... Hire us, we'll get you a pardon. Oh, Jesus. The person was not authorized to discuss the matter publicly and spoke on condition of anonymity. The lawyers did not explicitly discuss the potential pardon, but investigators are looking into whether it was an implicit communication that Cohen's chances of a pardon could be increased if he hired the attorneys, the person said. The lawyers later sent Cohen a bill for the legal services, which he didn't pay, according to the person. Lawyers, I just love them. Mr. Giuliani did not immediately return a call for comment. In his statement Thursday, Mr. Davis tried to downplay the contradiction between his statement and Cohen's testimony. He said when he was brought on to Cohen's legal team in June, his client authorized me as a new lawyer to say publicly Mr. Cohen would never accept a pardon from President Trump, even if offered. That continues to be the case, Mr. Davis said, and his statement at the oversight hearing was true and consistent with his post-joint defense agreement commitment to tell the truth. Mr. Davis did not immediately respond Thursday to text messages and emails seeking additional information. Separately on Thursday, Cohen filed a lawsuit in New York City claiming the Trump Organization broke a promise to pay his legal bills and owes at least $1.9 million to cover the cost of his defense. Cohen says the company breached the contract when it stopped paying his mounting legal fees after he began cooperating with federal prosecutors in their investigation. Trump Organization didn't respond to messages seeking comment, and Cohen's attorneys declined to comment on the suit. Yeah, my guess is his attorneys think that's a bad idea. I don't know, but somebody tells me that'd be a bad idea. So you're going to claim they breached the contract because they didn't pay my legal bills, even though I was making up lies and stuff, stories about Donald Trump. That's funny. That's too funny. All right. So let's get to the next story here. Boom. Democrats divided over Venezuela. Well, that's an interesting story. I didn't know they were divided. Well, let's find out how divided they are. That's interesting. Geez, the Democrat. In the description part of the show it says Democrats suffer identity crisis. Well, they got one now, big time, with Ilhan Omar versus the Black Congressional Caucus versus Nancy Pelosi, and I guess, and you got to remember something. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, was also going after Hakeem Jeffries. I think he's number 4 in the House leadership, African American representative out of New York City. And now here's an interesting story. Democrats are divided over Venezuela. House liberals slam military threat and letter. Well, you got to remember, it says House liberals. No, these are House leftists. These are House socialists. These are people who are saying, oh, if Venezuela can just get their act together to prove how great socialism is. Yeah, that's why they're divided right now. They're not divided over is what's going on there a humanitarian crisis or not. They're divided over the fact that this is one of their heroes, Venezuela. Maduro and before him Chavez. So here we go. Already divided internally over how to handle charges of anti-Semitism in their ranks, congressional Democrats found themselves at odds over another hot-button issue as a group of liberal House, I don't know why they call them liberal, as a group of liberal House Democrats called on the White House to change course on its tough policy against Venezuelan socialist President Nicolas Maduro. On the same day, the State Department Venezuelan point man, Elliot Abrams, was promising a wider net of sanctions to target banks dealing with Venezuela. 16 House Democrats, organized by California Representative Ro Khanna, released a letter to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo condemning the pressure campaign against the Maduro regime and demanding Mr. Trump take the military option off the table. While criticizing the Maduro government's economic policies and political repression, the letter expressed deep concern over the administration handling the crisis, particularly its suggestions of military intervention, imposition of broad unilateral sanctions, and recent recognition of an opposition leader as interim president without a clear plan in place to hold democratic elections and avoid an escalation of violence. Let's see. Let's see. Well, there you go. You see that picture right there. Yay. Okay. U.S. unilateral sanctions are making military threats. U.S. unilateral sanctions and military threats are making life for ordinary Venezuelans. Are making life. Well, I'm sure there was some other word that went with that. Let's just say are making life miserable for ordinary Venezuelans. The letter said. But at a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing Thursday, where Mr. Abrams testified, both Republicans and Democrats had harsh words for Mr. Maduro in support for the international drive to force him out in favor of opposition leader Juan Guaido. I'm not going to be repentant about our advocacy for sanctions as a peaceful tool to try to move a country in a better direction, said Senator Bob Menendez, a ranking Democrat on the Senate panel, said Thursday. Mr. Abrams, after the hearing, praised Mr. Menendez's stance. He got it exactly right, Abrams told the Washington Times. Signers of the House Democratic letter included, here we go, prominent junior liberal members such as Representatives Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, and Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. Now, Gabbard is just anti-intervention, period, which is not a bad stance to take, but it's not because she's a big fan of Venezuela or socialism or anything like that. Probably just the opposite. Senator Marco Rubio, Florida Republican and a leading Hill critic of the Maduro government, hit back at the House group's claims following the Senate committee's hearing, saying in an interview, they don't know what they're talking about. Well, he's probably right about that. He's probably right about that. I don't know who they are, Mr. Rubio added. We're a big country and a lot of different ideas, but the overwhelming majority of people on both sides of the aisle in the House and Senate support U.S. policy on Venezuela. Last week, Mr. Abrams announced 49 new visa restrictions and sanctions on top regime people and their families who we don't want in the United States. The sanctions also included Venezuelan security officials accused of obstructing international aid into the country. The U.S. has issued sweeping sanctions on the Venezuelan state-owned oil company, PDVSA, and financial institutions. Mr. Abrams confirmed at Thursday's hearing the U.S. is preparing to slap additional sanctions on financial institutions supporting Mr. Maduro's regime, and is going to expand the net of sanctions and visa restrictions on the socialist leaders' inner circle, their families, and supportive companies. There will be more sanctions on financial institutions that are carrying out the orders of the Maduro regime to steal funds from Venezuela and hide it around the world, Mr. Abrams said. Despite concern from the committee about potential economic fallout from a political collapse in Caracas, Mr. Abrams contended that International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have plans that include billions of dollars in funds to reconstruct the economy of Venezuela, which boasts some of the world's largest proven oil reserves. This is not fundamentally a bankrupt country, Mr. Abrams told the committee. With a change of leadership and a change of economic policy, there will be lots of people who are ready to invest. And it's another reason why the left doesn't want us to help them, because it's going to be the socialists failed, the big bad capitalist U.S. came in, saved the day, and changed their economic policy from socialism to capitalism to free markets, and that's how Venezuela got turned around. And that's the last thing the left wants as a narrative out there. Not today, but a year and a half from now, 2 years from now. Last thing they want said, the capitalists had to come in and save the day for the socialist Venezuelans. Hey, Amy, how you doing? Thanks for hosting a live. I'm just listening, but you should do the rap. Lawyer. Oh, let me see if I can find that. Let's see now. Let's see, where is that? Where do I have that? Let's see if I can find it real quick here. Let's see. I'll put me up on here while I go looking for it. Let's see. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking for it because I don't want to bore anybody with me searching, but I think I know where it might be. Let's see. Where was it? Let's see if I can find it. Okay, it's me humming while I'm looking for it. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. All right, come on. Where is it? Let me see if this is it here. This might be it. Let's see. We're not open. Damn. All right. Well, I tried to find it. Sorry, couldn't find it. But our live call-in number is area code 775-273-8970. And if you wish to appear in a VMix video link where you actually appear side by side with me, that's right, with me, then you can send me an email to ca2jogger@gmail.com. And I will then send you a link, and you'll appear side by side. It takes like a couple of seconds. You just type in your username, and then you hit join call. Then you see a picture of you in a box, and then a couple of seconds later, you see the whole box with me in a different box, and then I bring you in, and you're up here live one-on-one with me. It's kind of a fun thing to do. If you guys are anybody's interested in doing that, I like doing that. I do live call-in on video calls. I've done that on a couple of different YouTube sites. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of a fun thing. But let's see. Let's get back to the news at hand. Let's see. Commander sees an unbroken Islamic State. Idiot. China learns how to use our courts for its own end. Well. Let's see. Nope. Some editorials. All right, let's go back here. Trying to find a good story to cover here. Nope. Let's see. We'll go to the new part of the Washington Times. Sometimes they have breaking stories. Let's check this out. Let's see. This kind of goes along what we've been talking about. Let's see. Fusion GPS. Why not? Glenn Simpson. Yeah, it kind of goes along with what we've been talking about tonight. So I guess it'll kind of go right along the same lines. All right. And let's change something over real quick. All right, let's take a look at this. Boom. Fusion GPS founder provided mounds, I like that word, mounds of anti-Trump data to the Justice Department. All right, let's get to it. Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson, who orchestrated the anti-Trump dossier, provided the Justice Department with a thumb drive in December 2016. Now, mind you, this is after Trump has just won the election, November of 2016. This is now December. So anyway, Glenn Simpson's giving, because now he's won, but they're not done with him yet. They're not done with Trump. They did everything humanly possible to keep from getting him elected, but this is the insurance policy. Well, this is part of the insurance policy. Well, the dossier, I guess, is the insurance policy. And then getting, the Justice Department to investigate it, and then when that didn't work, then Comey leaking the story, so they would have to appoint a special counsel, and then, of course, forcing Sessions to recuse himself, and that puts Rosenstein in charge, which was part of the whole cabal to begin with, the Fox watching the henhouse. So anyway, in December of 2016, remember, Trump's already been elected. He's over there in Trump Tower meeting with people. No. He's over there in Trump Tower meeting with people, getting his administration ready, picking his cabinet, hiring staff, the whole 10 yards. I mean, these things, they're moving forward. Meanwhile, little does he know that in the background of all this, you have the Justice Department, but Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and Andy McCabe and Rod Rosenstein and James Comey, and Bruce Orr at Justice as well, all conspiring behind his back to he won the election, but we're not done. We're gonna stop this guy, okay? And if we have to do it, even after he takes office, we're ending this. We're gonna do it because this is what we do. We're Americans, and this is for the American way because we know better than the American people. We're the intelligentsia. We're the smart ones. If the American people just listen to us, things would be much better. If those damn deplorables out there would just listen to us, the world would be a better place. This is how these people really think. I mean, they really think this way. So, Carl, make it your intro after the cool music, then you won't have to look for it. Oh, yeah, actually, I probably should do that. But, I'll be honest with you, Amy, you're not the only fan who's been calling for, me to play my rap video. I mean, it's gone viral, it's gone worldwide. It's not real big in the U.S., but like in Japan, it's huge. I mean, you wouldn't know that because you're not in Japan, and neither would I, but take my word for it. In Japan, I'm huge. I guarantee you, if I walked down the street in Tokyo, I'd be mobbed. I'd be completely mobbed. And I just have to leave me alone, fans. But no, I that was fun putting that together. Actually, it was kind of a goofy idea I had one day. I had a turntable, and I was sitting why don't we do this? but it was kind of just goofy anyway. But anyway, this goes on to say, so again, I'll just start at the beginning on this one. Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson, who orchestrated the anti-Trump dossier, provided the Justice Department with a thumb drive in December 2016 containing company's opposition research into the president. The disclosure comes from Senior Justice Attorney Bruce Orr in closed congressional testimony last year. Representative Doug Collins, Republican of Georgia, and the ranking House Judiciary Committee member released a transcript on Friday. Mr. Orr's testimony adds to the picture of wide access Mr. Simpson, a Hillary Clinton opposition researcher, gained to the upper levels of the Department of Justice and the FBI, which, of course, is insane. Here's a Hillary Clinton operative. After Trump's been elected, now he's given access to the leaders of the Justice Department, leaders of the FBI. Why? Because they're all on the same page. Because they're all part of the same deal. None of them wanted Trump to get elected. They all wanted Clinton to get elected. And she goes on to say, Mr. Orr tells the story of how he became the middleman between the FBI and Mr. Simpson and his contractor, former British spy Christopher Steele. The FBI was investigating the Trump campaign for possible election collusion with Moscow at the time. The Simpson thumb drive, which Mr. Orr delivered to the FBI, was his second from Fusion. His wife, Nellie, a Russia expert at Fusion, provided the first one before the election. Now, I mean, Jesus Christ, talk about conflicts of interest. Here's a guy, number 4, I believe, at Justice, Bruce Orr. His wife works for pretty much the Hillary Clinton campaign through a third party. Hillary's lawyers hired Fusion to get dirt. Okay, so basically these guys are they're like independent contractors working for the Clinton campaign. His wife is working on the dossier, the most bombshell explosive thing in the universe. His wife's working on putting that together, and he's over at Justice. She hands it to him. And basically hands it to him, and nobody says, well, gee, maybe that's a conflict. That's your wife. Maybe you're not going to, look deep dive into it, look deep dive into Fusion because you don't want to get your wife in trouble. And this guy's still an attorney. Amazing. Let's read on here. In all, Mr. Orr's testimony shows that a steady flow of information from Fusion was reaching the FBI at a time when it was making critical decisions pursuing Trump aides. Mr. Orr said he didn't inspect either thumb drive. By December, Mr. Steele had completed a 35-page dossier that contained about a dozen collusion charges, none of which have been proven publicly. Yeah, all these went away. I mean, none of these have been proven publicly. Let me see if I can pull this up a little bit for you guys here. I don't want to mess it up. That might be a little bit easier to read. Okay. Republicans, none of which have been proven publicly. Republicans consider it a hoax and possible Kremlin disinformation. Mr. Steele said his dossier sources were Russian government officials. Yeah, guys who were purposely trying to screw the whole campaign up and screw with Trump, whether he won or not, because they just wanted to create just confusion in our ranks. And the FBI were more than happy to go along with it, knowing that's what the Russian intent was, knowing this was all scatterbrained, knowing it wasn't confirmed or verified by anybody. But they're happy to use it. So, well, we got it from this guy. We thought it was true. Did you look into it? Well, he seemed like a nice guy. Yeah, okay, so let's leave this country into misery for 2 years. Mr. Steele said his dossier were sources were Russian government officials. And yet, the story goes on to say, yet the FBI relied on the dossier at key times, such as using it to convince a judge who let agents wiretap Carter Page, a Trump volunteer, for a year. And again, it's not just wiretapping Carter Page. Again, remember what President Obama said in the last couple of years of administration when all that stuff got leaked about the NSA listening to all our phone calls, and all your phone calls are recorded, and your emails, your text messages, everything you ever say to anybody on the phone, cell phone, hardline, whatever, gets recorded and stored. And then if you get a FISA warrant, and they're all indexed and cataloged, so then if you get a FISA warrant on this Carter Page guy, you can go back X amount of years. What X is, no one knows. You go back X amount of years, and you can follow whoever he talked to, and then you can listen to those phone calls because they're all stored. So the whole point of getting anybody, and I guess Carter Page was the biggest idiot they can find, although the guy's not an idiot, he graduated Annapolis, but I mean just somebody they figured they could latch onto. They just wanted anybody who was associated with the campaign. Why? Because they know eventually they could follow him talking to John Smith. John Smith talks to Bill Jones. They're following Bill Jones. Bill Jones talking to 10 people. One of those 10 people talks to Paul Manafort or talks to Lewandowski or talks to Kellyanne Conway. And then Kellyanne Conway, Lewandowski, Manafort talks to Trump. And guess what? Listening to Trump's phone calls. Okay? And they want to spy on a political opponent in a presidential election. Again, when people say this is third world kind of stuff, they're not exaggerating. Yes, Amy, that is a great saying. If you look close enough, you can indict a ham sandwich. Yes, that's true. That's true. Any good assistant U.S. attorney could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Why? Because, right, the assistant U.S. attorney controls the proceedings. Defense attorneys are not allowed in the room. The defendant is brought in without his attorney, and it's kind of tricky. You can go in and out of the room, but, if the foreman says no, and the grand jury foreman, they don't realize how much power they have because it's their grand jury. But they just listen to the U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney, because they don't know any better. But basically, they run the show. I mean, they could theoretically kick the assistant U.S. attorney out of the room. They could subpoena people, they can bring in witnesses, they can do whatever they want, but a lot of them just want to go home. Grand juries sit for 18 months. They don't sit every day. But, if you're on a grand jury, you have to go. And they say, oh, you're going to be here for 3 weeks. Well, you're going to be there for 3 weeks. That's the way it goes. But anyway, so Mr. Orr told a Joint House Judiciary Oversight Committee he warned the FBI that Fusion was tied to Mrs. Clinton. And therefore, they needed to verify the hearsay. Well, that's pretty amazing. I guess he did come clean. He said, it's funny. Here he goes, hey, man, I'm sure the conversation was, hey, I got this from Fusion. That's where my wife works. But, these people work for the Clintons, and so just because it's written down in here, it's my wife, but I'm just telling you, we might want to check this out. Because a lot of hearsay in here. This guy told me this, who told me this, who told me that, probably double, triple, quadruple hearsay in there. Nothing confirmed, nothing verified. So he's telling the FBI this. And, of course, the FBI, there's Peter Strzok, there's Andy McCabe, there's Rod Rosenstein. What was that movie with Ben Affleck where they robbed banks and mainly armored cars, and the one FBI officer wanted enough to bring the guys in to question them, Ben Affleck and his crew. And they find the car, and they say, look, get me Get me a print or get me something that looks like something like a print, so I can say that's one of these guys we think, and we can get a warrant to bring them in for questioning. It's the same thing here. Even though Orr's telling him, hey, look, this came from op research, which doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It's just something they want to dump on the candidate a few weeks before the election when he doesn't have time to respond. So it could be just all fanciful. Steele's got hearsay on top of hearsay on top of hearsay. He talked to this guy, talked to this guy, talked to this guy, and this guy says, yeah, I saw Trump peeing on a bed with a couple of hookers. Okay, but nobody's independently verified it. Nobody went over to Moscow to talk to the guys that Steele supposedly said he talked to, nor the Russians be willing to cooperate anyway. So he's telling him, hey, look, man, there's a lot of hearsay in here. Steele wasn't, in fact, I don't think Steele ever went to Moscow. I think that was a testimony. He never even went to Moscow. All this was done from, over the phone and emails. They met somewhere else, but I don't think he ever went to Moscow personally. So, I mean, that's even worse. So Orr goes on to say, what he said in the committee was, so when I provided it to the FBI, I tried to be clear that this is source information. Orr testified, I don't know how reliable it is. You're going to have to check it out and be aware. These guys were hired by somebody related to the Clinton campaign. And be aware, they were somehow working associated with the Clinton campaign. I guess it was like, hey, man, that's my wife. I don't want us to both get screwed. So the FBI did not disclose the Clinton connection in its warrant application. It said agents included a footnote. Now, mind you these judges read these things all the time. If you want to bury something, bury it inside of a footnote. If you want to have a judge read something, or not read it, I should say. So, anyway, the FBI did not disclose the Clinton connection in its warrant application. Instead, agents included a footnote that said the Bureau speculates. No, they didn't have to speculate at the time or told them. This came from a company that the Clintons hired to get op research. They're working with the Clintons. So the Bureau speculates. Why, they think Orr was lying? They didn't, look up, his wife and see where she worked? Come on. That Steele identified as source number one was likely looking for information that could be used to discredit candidate number one campaign. That's it. They didn't, the judge didn't, the judge is used to signing these things because he's used to the FBI and the FBI coming in saying, hey, this is a terrorist. We got to find this guy. So they give all this stuff and they said, oh, we got two sources. We got the Yahoo News story, which was based on the Steele dossier, and we got the Steele dossier. And of course, they don't tell the judge, hey, we're not, the guy who gave it to us, Bruce Orr, he's number 4 of his justice. You probably know him. Yeah, I know Bruce. Yeah, well, he said, don't really rely on this thing because the guy needs to get checked out. And the judge would have said, well, did you check it out? He goes, no. Well, he goes, well, the hell, I ain't signing this damn thing. You guys didn't even check it out. But no, that never happened. So anyway, Mr. Orr began his self-appointed conduit role by meeting in July 16 with then FBI Director Andrew McCabe and his counsel, Lisa Page. Remember her with the struck text messages, her and her boyfriend? Mr. McCabe fired for allegedly lying during an Inspector General investigation. Doesn't mention Mr. Orr or the dossier in his best-selling memoir. Oh, he kind of leaves that part out. So here's Orr saying he had a meeting in July with FBI, July 2016. Okay, these dates are important. This is July 2016. With then FBI Director Andrew McCabe and counsel Lisa Page. This is when supposedly the investigation began, even though we know it actually began a few months earlier. But nonetheless, he's meeting in July when the FBI is going to officially start their investigation. And McCabe leaves this part out of his book. That's kind of funny. This means that Mr. Steele's anti-Trump conspiracy theories reached the Bureau's highest levels early on. The official Russian probe came later that month, started by Agent Peter Strzok, who we know how much he hates Trump supporters. West Virginia down at Walmart, had to hold his nose the whole 10 yards. Mr. Orr met with Mr. Simpson in August and again after the election. He met with Mr. Steele in July and continued talking for over a year. Over a year with Mr. Steele. So you're talking July of 2016, you're talking to him all the way through July of 2017. And continued talking for over a year via WhatsApp, Skype, and phone calls. He also conveyed fusion material to Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page. The two were lovers. Two were lovers and shared text messages, among a lot of other things, I'm sure, disparaging Mr. Trump and talking about how to stop him. Quote, I wanted to get the information, whatever information they had. I wanted to get it to the FBI, and I wanted to try to create the situation for people like Glenn Simpson to talk to the FBI, Mr. Orr testified. Wow. So obviously I put a big, feather in his wife's cap. This is sedition at the least, if people weren't so brainwashed, they would riot. Oh, I totally agree. This is total sedition. To without a doubt, what these people were doing, without a doubt, total sedition. Total sedition. All righty, let's see here. Let's see if I'm going to cover anything else or I'm going to call it a night. Let's take a look. I'm trying to think. There was one other story I wanted to cover here. Here, we'll put me back on. You don't have to watch me scroll up and down here. Boom. And there's a call-in number again, 775-273-8970, and email for a video link to appear in a video linked vMix video production live stream call. And let's see. Oh, here we go. And you see this story. Let me bring this over here. Right. Let's pass this over. Court gives illegal immigrants new right of appeal before deportation. Great. Judges rule Congress can't restrict access to court. So now, even though it's tough as hell to deport anybody who's here illegally, now they have a new right of appeal. Let's reread what this guy has to say. Let's fix this a little bit. All right. Okay. Some illegal immigrants gained a new right of appeal Thursday when a federal appeals court ruled that Congress cannot prevent them from challenging their deportations in federal courts. So now they have federal rights to challenge the deportation. So they're here illegally, costing us a fortune. Now they have a right to access to the federal courts for challenging their deportation, which should just be an administrative remedy. The American Civil Liberties Union, which had argued the case, called it a sweeping decision that will give asylum seekers a chance to make their case in a regular U.S. court, rather than being limited to bureaucrats and judges at the immigration court system. So I guess he doesn't think much about the judges of the immigration court system. These guys probably work 14-hour days. The ruling was issued, big surprise here, the ruling was issued by the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and only applies to cases within that region, including the border states of California and Arizona. Well, that's a lot of people. The three-judge panel, all appointees of President Clinton, said Congress cannot short-circuit access to the courts for illegal immigrants who say they wanted to ask for asylum, but were given short shrift, I've never heard that phrase before, by the Homeland Security Department. They said migrants arriving in the U.S., even those without status, have a habeas corpus right to have their treatment reviewed by federal courts, particularly because there are only meager safeguards built into the system already. Habeas review provides important oversight of whether DHS complied with the required credible fear procedures, Judge A. Wallace Tashima wrote in the opinion for the unanimous panel. The Ninth Circuit ruling overturned a district court judge, an Obama appointee. It also conflicts with another decision by the Third U.S. Circuit, which looked at the same question and came to the opposite conclusion. That could make the case ripe for an appeal to the Supreme Court, since the justices are often more eager to step in when there's a split among the circuits. Justice Department declined to comment on the setback. Thursday case involved a Sri Lankan man, Balajukumar Tarashingaman, who fled to Mexico in 2016 and snuck into the U.S. in early 2017, was arrested and put into what's known as expedited removal, a fast deportation process that prevents the federal courts from getting involved in all but a few special circumstances. Mr. Tharixiam then requested asylum. An asylum officer reviewed his claim and decided it was lacking. The decision was affirmed by a supervisor and then by an immigration judge who was part of the executive branch. Mr. Tharixiam then sued, arguing his rights had been violated by the proceedings. The government argued federal courts couldn't hear the case, pointing to the law that only allows court challenges in limited cases where someone's claims where someone claims he's actually a citizen, whether he's has another legal right to be in the U.S., and whether he was actually ordered deported. The Ninth Circuit said those circumstances were too limited. Yeah, because they just want to let them all in. It said the Supreme Court had extended habeas rights to terrorism suspects of Guantanamo who never set foot on U.S. soil. So under that framework, people who have reached the U.S., even if they did so without authorization, have habeas rights. The historical and practical importance of this ruling cannot be overstated, said Lee Gellernet, Deputy Director of the ACLU's Immigration Rights Project. The decision reaffirms the Constitution's foundational principle that individuals deprived of their liberty must have access to a federal court. Yay! Illegals are getting tax grants, LASIK surgery, and braces, according to an immigration study. Tax credits. Oh, God. That's amazing. I think somebody said the cost for housing, I think I was watching a Tucker show, maybe it might have been somebody else's, per night, if we, to house an unaccompanied minor, it costs like $785 per night. $785 per night to house an unaccompanied minor in the United States. Can you imagine if, you went to a foster home and just threw them an extra $785 per child? This is what kind of facilities they could have for American kids, who maybe parents are in prison, parents died in a car accident, parents are on drugs, whatever. But not what they get right now, but add just another $785 per one of those kids. I mean, they can have private tutors come into those places, facilities, all kinds of stuff. But no, that's, we have to take care of people who are illegally before we can take care of our own citizens. I mean, that's another reason why we can't do some of the things Europe does. One, they don't spend a lot of money in defense, but we're spending a fortune on this illegal immigration. And the numbers are just going through the roof, and they're being encouraged by the Democrats because, look, they watch the news, okay? This story yesterday I was reading where they were talking about how, this whole thing coming together as a family is now spurring a whole new, black market in Honduras, where they're making up phony birth certificates to show you're related to this kid. Like, say you just want to come over, but you don't have any kids. Well, you probably got a good shot of getting deported, but you need a couple of kids. Well, there's a couple of homeless kids right down the street or whatever. And then you just make up some phony birth certificate and say they're your kids. And the kid's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm living on the street. Voting rights for illegals. I saw that. I did see that in the story. Let me see if I can find that. I want to say I saw it in the Washington Times, where the Democrats just voted on, where was that? Let's see, it was in the Times. There we go. Boom. Let's pull this up. House votes in favor of illegal immigrant voting. There you go. There you go, Amy. Let's see here. Story, again, according to the Washington Times, House Democrats voted Friday to defend localities that allow illegal immigrants to vote in their elections, turning back a GOP attempt to discourage the practice. The vote marks a stunning reversal from just 6 months ago when the chamber, then under GOP control, voted to decry illegal immigrant voting. We are prepared to open up the political process and let all of the people come in, Representative John Lewis, a Georgia Democrat and hero of the civil rights movement, told colleagues as he led opposition to the GOP measure. The 228-197 vote came as part of a broader debate on Democrats' major legislative priority this year, H.R. 1, for the People's Act, which includes historic expansions of voter registration and access, as well as a major rewrite of campaign finance laws. The measure would have hoped to send, but Republicans had hoped, wait, I just skipped over a paragraph, sorry. The measure would have had no practical effect even if it had passed. Illegal immigrants, and indeed non-citizens as a whole, are not legally able to participate in federal elections. But Republicans had hoped to send a message to localities such as San Francisco, where non-citizens are allowed to vote in school board elections. It sounds like I'm making it up. What kind of government would cancel the vote of its own citizens and replace it with non-citizens, said Representative Dan Crenshaw of Texas. He pointed to last year's vote when 49 Democrats joined the GOP to decry non-citizen voting. On Friday, just 6 Democrats voted in favor. In 1996, federal law prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal elections, but there is no prohibition on localities, and indeed a number of jurisdictions allow it to some extent. Famously liberal Tacoma Park, a small jurisdiction in Maryland, has for several decades allowed non-citizens, including illegal immigrants, to vote in local elections. San Francisco in July began allowing non-citizens, experts say as many as 40 states or territories allowed non-citizen voting dating back to the nation's founding. San Francisco in July began allowing non-citizens to vote in school board elections, though they must be parents or legal guardians of the students. Well, gee, I hope so. Otherwise, what are they doing there? No, I mean, this is a crazy story. I mean, I don't think it gets any crazier. You know, I mean, it's kind of nuts. So, um, you know, I mean, what's next? I mean, basically, this is the whole open borders thing. And just let them all in. Let them in, let them vote. I mean, look, this is going to just where it's going to start. It's not going to end here. I mean, this is not the end. This is the beginning of our end if we let it happen. But this is not, they're not just going to say, oh, okay, they can vote now here. They're going to try to get a statute where illegal immigrants can vote in U.S. elections. They're going to allow that. I mean, this is kind of crazy. Hey, Mr. Douchebag. How you doing, Mr. Douchebag? But no, this is insane. You know, this is really quite crazy. Let me put the phone number up. Bum, bum, bum. Boop. And there's the call-in phone number, 775-273-8970. So anybody wants to call in, feel free, call on in. The phone lines are open. Well, actually, I mean, I never close them, but they're open. But anyway, so, but yeah, so I mean, this is an interesting story. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stories going on today. Again, the funny one I led with was Ilhan Omar. You know, one day after the one day after the Black Congressional Caucus basically saved her ass. Let me switch this over here. Yep, there I am. And one day after the Black Congressional Caucus saved her ass by telling Pelosi not to censor her, not to put a bill in that would remove her of her committee assignments, and that was Clyburn, the Democratic whip number 3 in the House, and led by the other Black Congressional members, all Democrats, of course, Black Congressional Caucus. Well, I'm not sure. I think they might be all Democrats. But, you know, he covered her ass. He said, no, we don't want her censored. And, you know, I guess there's a large amount of anti-Semitism in the black community that nobody really talks about, but it's there. They have no problem talking about anti-Semitism in the white community, but there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the black community as well. But he saves her ass, and then one day later she criticizes Obama. She says, you know, he was he spoke well, you know, he was very polished was the exact word she used, and we shouldn't be fooled by that, and he was bad because he used drone strikes against Muslims, and also he put kids in cages, and he's a bad person. And she kind of ripped into him. And this is the Black Congressional Caucus's hero, you know, Barack Obama. And one day later she rips into him, which is hilarious. Let's see, Tucson has 2 ladies on a board that was part of the Pima County board that denied federal law enforcement money to protect the border. Yeah. It's like you know, we're committing suicide. You know, it's like we're doing it in real time. You know, nobody seems to care. We're just doing it in real time. Dang you, Carlos, going to bed. Ah, yeah. Well, oh yeah, see, yeah, I'm in the furthest West Coast time zone, 11:30. So it's late, but it's not that late for me. It's you know, West Coast, yeah. If you're like in, you know, Central or Mountain time zone, yeah, you're gonna be it's getting a little late there at 12:30, 1:30 in the morning. So yeah, it's kind of tough. But I'm probably gonna go ahead and wrap up the live stream anyway. So we'll let you go to bed, Miss Amy D. You get some good sleep there. But I do want to thank everybody who's been in the chat, everybody who's been watching the video today. Thanks, Mr. Douchebag, for returning to the site. And we're going to wrap this up. We'll probably do another live stream tomorrow. And I'm not sure what time I'll be coming on, but hopefully you guys are getting the notifications. What I do is I post it with YouTube up, at least a half hour ahead of time. Then I go ahead and post up, the live with the music and stuff. So hopefully you guys are getting the notifications on that. But yeah, and then next week I'm going to a chili cook-off. I'll be doing live interviews from that. That's here in Pahrump. It's the Silver State Interstate Chili Cook-Off. It's a big state competition. It's held right here in big, beautiful Pahrump, Nevada. Saturday and Sunday from the hours of 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on both Saturday and Sunday. Sunday, I believe they crown the champion, and it'll be lots of good food and lots of good times. It's a very safe environment here in Pahrump. Most people carry firearms, so either concealed or open carry, as we were talking about earlier on a different show. So you have a lot of armed people in town. It's about 80% Trump supporters in this town as well. Maybe a little bit higher, but 80%. Trump got 80% of the vote in 2016. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'll be setting up a booth there, and I'll be conducting interviews. A mic for me, a mic for the person I'm interviewing, a camera on them, a camera on me, and we'll be going live during the course of both Saturday and Sunday. I'll also be taking call-ins as well for those 2 days. So we have the ability to do call-in shows as well as vMix video calls also. So it'll be a regular type call-in show, except the only difference will be I'll be in the field, not here in my house. I'll be actually in the field in a booth, at a park, with his chili cook-off and other events going on. Then what I'll do also, I'll be taking got this nice little device, kind of what do you call it? Camera mounting device, and it's got like a 5-foot kind of collapsible, extended kind of stock, if you will, on it. And it allows me to, telescoping kind of, camera holder. So I get up to 5 feet, got little legs on it. It's kind of like, when I shot the Balloon Festival. So I'll be going around with that, doing a live stream, interviewing people, and looking at the different chilies and stuff, maybe tasting some. Hopefully it's not too hot, and actually I kind of like it hot, but still, it'll be kind of fun. So I'll be doing that next Saturday and Sunday as well, and I'll be on this weekend and probably next week also. So I do want to thank everybody who again was on the live stream, and I'll find you guys some music to see you guys out on this. Let's see. Boom. 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 And let's take this one off. Boom. But anyway, thanks again for everybody watching, and thanks for all those who'll be watching later. And let's find you guys some music. Here we go.
We're kings and queens.
Thank you, everybody.